There is a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when an advantage disappears. Not with a crash, not with a headline, just gone. For most of financial history, the people who won were the people who knew things others didn't. Simple as that. A tip from a broker, a contact inside a company, a terminal on your desk that cost more than most people's cars. Information was the weapon, and access to it was everything. But something has shifted, and the investors who haven't noticed yet are still playing a game that no longer exists. There was a time when a Bloomberg terminal, a single screen giving you access to financial data, cost around $24,000 a year. That wasn't an accident. That price was a wall that kept the well-resourced in and everyone else out. Today, AI-powered research tools exist for under $100 a month. The wall didn't just get shorter, it effectively vanished. So here's the question that should unsettle every professional investor alive right now. If the information advantage is gone, what replaces it? To understand where we're headed, you have to understand how the old system actually worked, not in theory, in practice. Imagine you're a portfolio manager in the 1990s. Your edge isn't genius, it's access. You get the earnings report before the public does. Your analyst has a relationship with the CFO. You have a terminal and your competitor doesn't. Information asymmetry, the idea that one party in a transaction simply knows more than the other, was the invisible engine powering enormous returns. It wasn't cheating mostly. It was just the structure of the world. Average hedge fund alpha, that's the return above what you'd get just from the market itself, ran at roughly 3% annually through the 1990s. In a world where every percentage point matters, 3% was a dynasty-building number. Then something started to erode it. Slowly at first, then faster. The internet democratized information. Regulation tightened. But the real disruption came from an unexpected direction. Data itself became a commodity. Funds started buying what's called alternative data, satellite images of retail parking lots to predict sales before earnings, credit card transaction feeds showing consumer spending in real time, shipping data, web traffic, job posting patterns, information that wasn't in any traditional report. By 2023, hedge funds were spending over $1.7 billion a year on this kind of data, up from near zero in 2010. It was a new arms race, and everyone was buying the same weapons. But here's the uncomfortable truth about arms races. When everyone upgrades, no one wins. The signal that used to be yours alone gets crowded out the moment your competitor buys the same dataset. By 2022, the half-life of a new alternative data signal, the time before it stops being useful, had dropped to under 6 months. 2 years earlier, it had been 18. The market was eating its own advantages almost as fast as they could be discovered. And then came AI. Not AI as a buzzword, AI as a genuine compression machine, a technology that can collapse months of research into minutes, surface patterns in millions of documents, and extract meaning from noise at a scale no analyst team can match. Think about what used to happen after a company reported earnings. An analyst would spend hours reviewing the transcript, comparing language to prior quarters, looking for tone shifts, hedges, confidence signals in how the CEO answered questions. That analysis might take a full day. AI tools can now process an entire earnings call transcript and generate investment signals in under 60 seconds. The analytical work that justified a research department's existence, the core value proposition, compresses to a minute. That's not incremental. That's structural. Natural language processing, which is just AI's ability to understand and interpret human language, can now scan court filings, patent applications, regulatory submissions, and social media simultaneously. It surfaces signals that a human analyst physically could not have found in time to act on. The question is no longer whether you have access to this capability. At today's prices, you do. The question is what that means for the people who used to earn their living by having access first. Consider what happened to Renaissance technologies. Founded by a mathematician named Jim Simons, its medallion fund produced average gross returns of around 66% annually from 1988 through 2018. That number sounds fictional. It isn't. But here's what made it possible. Renaissance didn't just have better data. They built a fundamentally different way of thinking about markets, an interpretive framework that others couldn't replicate even when they knew it existed. That's the lesson most people missed. The edge was never really the data, it was always what you did with it. BlackRock's systematic active equity team manages over $200 billion using AI-driven models, not because they have information nobody else can access, because they've built systems for acting on information faster, more consistently, and with fewer behavioral errors than a human decision maker. The moat has moved from access to architecture, and that shift creates a strange new world, one where the anxiety isn't about being uninformed, but about being outthought. For individual investors, this is actually a quietly revolutionary moment. The tools that once required a $24,000 a year terminal and a team of analysts are now accessible to anyone with a laptop and a credit card. But accessibility without judgment is not the same as an edge. This is the part that gets skipped in the democratization narrative. Information without interpretation is just noise. The flood of AI-generated analysis creates a new and perverse problem. When everyone has access to the same signals, everyone acts on the same signals at the same time in the same direction. Markets which run on disagreement begin to run on consensus. We've seen previews of this: flash crashes, momentum crowding, entire strategies unwinding in hours because too many algorithms learned the same pattern and hit the exit simultaneously. The irony is almost perfect. The technology designed to give you an edge ends up being the thing that erases the edge, because everyone else adopted it too. So what actually survives? What can't be commoditized? Fund managers who've thought deeply about this keep arriving at the same answer. The edge is no longer what data you have. It's what you do with data. The competitive frontier has moved from collection to interpretation. Interpretation means asking questions the model doesn't know to ask. It means understanding the context behind a number, the history, the psychology, the second-order effect that doesn't appear in any dataset. It means knowing when the signal is wrong. Most AI systems are extraordinarily good at identifying what has happened. They are significantly less good at understanding why, and almost blind to what is genuinely new. A model trained on historical data will see the present through the lens of the past. In normal markets, that's a strength. In moments of genuine structural change, a pandemic, a war, a technological break, it becomes a liability. Human judgment doesn't disappear in this world. It becomes more concentrated. The value moves to the rare person who can sit above the signal, understand its limits, and know when to trust it and when to override it. There's a term for this in complex systems: metacognition, thinking about your own thinking, knowing what you don't know. In a world drowning in AI-generated analysis, the most valuable skill is understanding the analysis, not just receiving it. Even when information is perfectly symmetric, when every participant has access to the same data, the same models, the same signals, behavior diverges. Humans act on fear, on hope, on anchoring to a price they paid 3 years ago. Knowing and doing are two different problems. Execution edge, the ability to act on a correct insight quickly, consistently, and without self-sabotage, may be the last durable competitive advantage in markets where information is nearly free. This matters beyond finance. In medicine, in law, in journalism, in consulting, Every field where asymmetric information was the product is now facing the same reckoning. The compression is coming for all of them, and the question each of those fields is only beginning to ask is the same, one markets have been quietly answering for years. When the information is equal, what are you actually selling? Back to that quiet moment, the one where an advantage disappears. For the portfolio manager who built a career on knowing more, on having the better terminal, on getting the call before anyone else, that moment has already happened. The wall came down. The data is everywhere. The machine can read the transcript faster than they can. But the investor who understands why the model flagged something, who can place that signal in a context the model cannot see, who knows when to act and, just as importantly, when not to, that person is still standing. The end of information advantages isn't the end of competitive advantages. It's a forced migration from what you know to how you think. And perhaps that was always the truer measure of an edge anyway. The data was never the point. It was the mind behind the data. The wall is gone. What you build in its place is yours to decide.